Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
Welcome to Game Over Montreal. Take a moment here, Montreal Canadiens fans, and think back to this time last season. Can you imagine a game like this happening? Not only with the Montreal Canadiens defeating a team like the St. Louis Blues, who has some high-end talent, plays a physical game, and, scoring 7 goals, all that, but playing run and gun hockey up until essentially the final whistle. And you never know what's going to happen because they're risking it all at all moments. That was insane. Absolutely fantastic game. We've got a great show for you tonight. We're going to talk about Dvorak Unleashed, Cole Caufield doing his Cole Caufield thing, scoring 2 tonight, Slavkovsky getting the power play rolling, and all sorts of other stuff. David Savard, heroic defensively. I've got Lori Bennett with me here tonight, who I know is a fan favorite for everybody who watches this show because she is amazing. But first, I got to tell you about our sponsor. Want to bet? You can do it at Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook. Football continues. The World Series is happening right now, and they've dropped the puck on the hockey season. We're well into the first month now. Bet pregame live in play or on one of our many prop bets. Like, for example, the prop bet for Cole Caufield outscoring Austin Matthews this year. I believe last time we checked in, it was at 6.26 to 1 in favor of, that's what your payout would be if you bet Caufield. Well, the score is 7 to 2 currently as we approach the end of October. So I wonder if those odds have changed. We might try to check that while we're talking with Lori here. But join now and see all sports betting has to offer. Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. That's sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. Ontario only, 19 plus. Please play responsibly. And as always, if you or anyone in your family or your loved ones has an addiction to gambling or needs help breaking away, there are resources available in the description of this video. So please check them out. All right, everyone, let's welcome in our guest, Lori Bennett. Lori, how's it going?
Going well. It's a lot funner to watch hockey right now than it was last year this time, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's really not even a comparison.
Different teams.
Totally different teams.
Yeah.
And there's been some turnover in personnel, right? But it's very clearly from management to coaching all the way down. There's a different attitude. Players are allowed to have fun now and take risks. I mentioned off the top the way that the Canadiens played to the end of the period, and dueling breakaways with 5 minutes left, absolutely wild. But what stuck out the most to me was Nick Suzuki, who had a incredible game.
He was fantastic.
After a couple of not so great games, I found where he was really forcing things. Tonight he looked like peak Nick Suzuki. But Nick Suzuki, I think with 2 minutes left, he pinched hard at the offensive blue line and created a turnover that almost created a Caufield in the slot all alone chance. Those ones that they seem to be able to create all the time by that kind of play, but just there was no backing off. And I love it.
Not at all. Yeah. It's a totally different team. Yes, new personnel for sure. But even the personnel they chose are personnel that the previous leadership would not have chosen or would not have made happen. And it's a change in thinking from top to bottom. And watching Suzuki and Caufield, ascend while that change in thinking is happening is pretty fine stuff.
Yeah, it is incredible. And, my analogy that I keep on hammering home all year this year is the two of them are like two little sharks in a feeding frenzy when they're really going, and they just every mistake in the offensive zone that an opponent makes, they are on that puck so quickly. And Caufield's first goal, he smells blood in the water and he's there every time, I love it.
The effort from Suzuki to make that first goal happen was just like that. It was like that because they were out of the game at that point. That's when it was 3-1. They were kind of out of the game, and it was like Suzuki was not going to be denied on it, and Caufield's ready to nail it home every time. He'll shoot. I swear to God, he would shoot from bench if the puck came anywhere near him. He loves to shoot, and he can miss 12, and it's not going to stop him from shooting 13. And and then he's rewarded. It's the confidence on the shot is brilliant. He's just so much fun to watch.
He's going to get like checked through the Zamboni door one day, and then like his skates will be off the rink and he'll shoot from there and somehow bank it in off a goalie or something.
Totally. He'll shoot from anywhere, and it's a fun thing to watch.
Yeah. Aaron Jolie from the chat says Savard had a really good game too. I completely agree. I don't know if the analytics will back that up because, with a play style like Savard has, it's hard to have great analytics games, and most of his contributions are in his own zone. But I thought that he was incredibly astute in his defensive zone, both with his stick and his body, breaking up chances like crazy. I just thought he was as good as you could possibly want, David Savard.
He made a fantastic play at the end when it was 6-4. That could have changed the whole. It could have made it dicey at the end, but he broke up a play there. That was nice, but he was strong all game. I thought Gouli had actually not his best game. Like we've seen Gouli have better games than he played tonight. And I thought so before that bad giveaway, but Savard was solid. And two of them together have looked good. It's hard to say who's helping who more, I guess, but they've looked good together, and it's working.
Yeah, Noel asks, how long did it take for last year's Canadiens to win 2 in a row? It wasn't until the coaching change. I know that.
Yeah.
That was the thing, right?
Yeah.
So feel free to look that up. I think didn't they win? They lost the first 3 or 4 under St. Louis, I believe. And they were like tighter games.
Yeah, they did.
And then they went on like a 3-game win streak, I think. So if anyone wants to look that up, who's in the chat, feel free to. And by the way, if you're enjoying the show, of course, please like the video. It helps us grow. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. And hey, if you're having fun hanging out here, so would a lot of your friends, right? So why don't you share the show on your socials right now and get us out there so people know that we're on, and, tell your friends about it. After the show's over, while the show's on, if you like talking about the Montreal Canadiens, this is the show for you. So get us out there, help us grow. But obviously, Caufield and Suzuki, there's a lot of questions about them in the chat. I forget who posted it. I just missed it there. But they asked, compared to other teams, how does Caufield and Suzuki's percentage of total team goals compare?
Oh, God.
It's got to be pretty high.
It's got to be pretty high.
Dvorak helped knock it down a little bit there at the end.
Yeah, there was a little, because everybody was expecting the hat trick to come from Dvorak tonight. That's who I would have pegged.
Well, I was ripping him in the second period.
Yeah, it's funny. He had a few rough moments before the goal that sent them up 3-1, I think, was completely on him. And then I guess he redeemed himself a little bit. I thought that line has been looking good, though. I like that trio. I like that combination. It's the best we've seen. Anderson is on that line with Dvorak and Gallagher. So
100%.
Yeah. Marty's had some interesting lines, but you can't knock them. They've worked. You look at the lines and go, and then it's worked. He's pulling the best out of a crew of veterans that you don't know if they're even going to be here, how much longer they're going to be here. But he's finding a way to shift and move them around, and good for him.
Yeah, I got a couple of direct messages directly after the game that were like, trade Dvorak right now. Like, while his value's high. I mean, I'm sure eventually he will be traded just because his contract is digestible, and as bad as the start to the season has been for him from a point production standpoint up to now, I feel like he's done good things in recent games. Like you said, the last game, I think this line was their best line. His first goal tonight, I feel like he's done that slot line pass to a teammate who hasn't put it home like 5 or 6 times in the last week. For sure.
He's there were several passes tonight that just didn't connect when they were losing. There were several excellent passes. There was Monahan, I think it was, lined up the perfect pass for Hoffman that he didn't finish. I'm not saying this to get everybody started on the Hoffman train tonight, but there were 2 or 3 perfect passes that just nobody home. But yeah, it was actually there was a really pretty pass to, I think, Dvorak to Gallagher, and he it was right in front of the net. He just tipped it wide, but certainly passes that could have been goals and would have had them on the board earlier and differently, but it all works out in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, the Hoffman miss on the Monahan pass, which was such a gorgeous play by Monahan to hold that puck and then still find a way to outweight the defender and slip it around them. Incredible play. That makes me think that maybe Hoffman is just cursed and it's not even just about skill, because like he's got to be able to hit that one.
Yeah, home. To me, he looks a little bit frantic.
Yeah.
There were a few games where he looked, to me, there were a few games where he was trying too hard. And I know a lot of people are saying that, he's useless. He's not, he's not doing anything out there. I don't know if I've seen a game where I thought he wasn't working, where he wasn't trying to get on the board. I mean, he's poorly placed where he is on the power play for sure. That's not his doing. They're playing him out of position, really, in my view, where they're putting him on the power play there. He belongs on the right circle, but I thought in every game I've seen effort. Whether that's been very effective or not is a different story, but yeah, to me he looks a little bit frantic, probably a little bit worried about how he's faring in this team, but
yeah.
Marty seems to like him, so we'll see.
He either seems to like him or he's very desperate to get him going. One of the two, right? I will say I thought Hoffman had some good defensive plays in the third period tonight. I thought that he for a guy who has nothing going, he does still seem to have a few plays every game where I'm like, oh, that's a nice little play, a nice little takeaway at the defensive blue line, that kind of stuff. That it's something to build on for him. But offensively, it's just not happening. I will say, though, the power play did look better with him at the top there of the first unit instead of Chris Weidman, but it ended up being the second unit that got the first goal. We got several requests to talk about the power play finally getting it done. Who would have guessed that the guy to get it done, to get it started, would be Juraj Slafkovsky?
Nice to see him get a chance. I don't know if anyone else caught it, and I fully intend to rewind and have a look at it again, but there was a moment on the first power play where the one where they scored, where the pass went back to the point and it was Hoffman and he bobbled it and went into the zone. And I don't know if it was Anderson or Doc. There was a 7. I don't know who it was that made the pass back, but when Hoffman bobbled it, there was just sort of a frustrated moment. I don't know, I got to watch it again, but it seemed to me afterwards that they were determined not to let it go back to the point. They were driving down toward the net, and the goal eventually came. But yeah, it's just I think the power play is. I think Hoffman's a good option for the power play. It's where if he's not bringing on the power play, that's been his bread and butter. I don't love the placement of him where he is.
No. I think it puts a lot of defensive pressure on him, right? Which is
absolutely
not what you want him thinking about.
Not his bag.
No, you don't want him trying to hold the blue line.
Weidman has been. Weidman's issue is that he's no threat to shoot whatsoever. And it's completely predictable what he's doing from that spot. So it kind of renders the whole, what is it they say? The grand equalizer is the guy who's on the power play who is never going to shoot, right? So, and that's been Weidman. So I'd like to see Harris get a go there, but I'm not sure they're going to give that to a kid just yet, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, especially Harris on which goal was it? Was it Suzuki's goal?
Suzuki's goal. Yeah.
You could see, right? Like that's the kind of thing that you want to happen on a power play. Quick decision making, cut to the middle, get that shot off in a way that can be tipped. It's little stuff like that.
He does it every game. Every game he manages to get a puck through that won't be a strong shot. It's not blazing into a top corner or anything. Nobody's limping off because they blocked Harris's shot, but he gets it through, and like it always used to amuse me. I'm going to go into a Shea Weber annoyance, but everyone would talk about, oh, the poor guy limping off because he took a Shea Weber shot. Well, yeah, that's lovely, but we're not into breaking shin pads. We're into turning the red light on. And Harris has a way of getting the puck through. A Monahan goal earlier in the season was directly from Harris just getting the puck through, and easy rebound, and it went. That's essential for where they are. They've got no one that's going to be the big blast from the point right now. So they need someone to just get it through and create some chaos in front of the net. And I think that's Harris, to be honest. I think that's the best option there right now.
I think so too. And actually, Jordan Harris is the co-lead for all rookies in shots on goal this year. Obviously, he has no goals, but he's still putting the puck on net, and
he's getting it in there.
He's getting that puck through. He's getting it in areas where it can be tipped. The other guy continues to get some good chances and hasn't scored yet from the back end. Not that I think he should be on the power play. We've got some questions about him in the chat. Kovacevic.
Oh, again, he's been a bit of a revelation.
Yeah, like when he pinches with authority. He just hasn't been able to put it home.
Yeah, he's. I thought he's like him and Harris together have been strong. I wondered about the pickup. I wondered if, were they actually, Hughes was talking forever about waiting for the right options. They believed that there would be some guys become available on waivers, and then they go with this guy. And I thought, is this who they've been waiting for? Or is it just, nothing else has happened? But now you look at it and go, well, it was a pretty good call. It's he's performing as good as you'd expect a waiver wire pickup to play. That's for sure. So it's he's been good.
Yeah, he's been
go back there
as good as you can imagine for a waiver claim, right? Like,
yeah,
you couldn't ask for better. There was a question here, or not a question so much as somebody pointing it out, that we know who the power play quarterback is going to be in a couple of years, and that's going to be Lane Hudson. As much as you don't want to put that pressure on a kid who's still growing, looking what he is doing in the NCAA today, like, as much as this game was incredible, this is a great night for the Montreal Canadiens. Their prospects, again, having great nights. Lane Hudson, 2 goals tonight, as pointed out by Rock Smasha. I didn't see that he also scored the OT goal. He tied the game in the last couple of minutes, then scored the OT winner. Like, this kid has ice in his veins. He's so slick with the puck. He's going to be incredible. Like, you look at people who project prospects for a living using data analysis, and the guys that he compares to are ridiculous. Like, I talked to a lot of scouts, and they're like, what is the expectation for Lane Hudson to do this year in the NCAA? And they were all saying, like, oh, well, if he can match Quinn Hughes' first year in the NCAA, that's perfect. And he's already on pace to just blitz that. He's over a point per game as an 18-year-old. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's certainly that's who we all hope will be quarterbacking in a couple of years. Maybe could it be as early as next year? We'll see what happens. But I think the other reality for the power play is that I think they expect that Matheson is going to be the quarterback in 6 weeks. Not in 2 years, but in 6 weeks. And I suspect that's why they're not. I think they're just clinging on with the guys that are there rather than putting the kid in a difficult position. But we'll see.
Yeah, and even if Matheson isn't, super dynamic with the puck, he has the skating ability that I feel like.
Yeah.
That's one thing that really limits Wideman. I feel like he does have some level of offensive creativity when he's allowed to take more risks, but he doesn't have the lateral mobility that a guy who's a great skater like Matheson does, and that should help the power play quite a bit. But they there's other issues too, like overpassing and guys not moving enough. But that seems to be a constant issue for the Montreal Canadiens. We'll see if they can sort it out down the stretch here. Aaron Jolie asks, when Matheson or Edmondson come back, who sits out? Kovacevic. I've seen, I talked to Stu Cowan and Rick Green for the Habs Inside Out show every week, and both of them this week when we talked on Wednesday were all in on Kovacevic sitting out, and I think that's wild. The first guy to sit out to me would be Wideman, because
100%.
He has a major function as the power play guy, but he's not getting that done. And as soon as someone else comes in and they can elevate someone else there that it isn't necessarily a downgrade. I think he's going to sit out. And he's also a guy that won't get upset by being sat out.
That is the beauty of Weidman, and that's why he's so valuable as a veteran, that he knows why he's there. He's not going to have a hissy fit if he sits a few. He'll come right back in if someone's injured. If a kid needs a break, he'll come back in. For me, that's I've not been quite sure about Hughes talking about still looking to find a right-handed defenseman when one of the Edmundson has been touted as the right-handed D, right? The guy who can, well, the left-handed, but can play both sides. And he's the veteran. For me, with Edmundson coming back and Matheson not too far away, and the team performing way better than anyone thought they would. For me, I'm not unless they can make a serious upgrade on the right side. I'm not sure anymore about the merits of it. I think what they've got is performing fine, and let it play out until some guys get healthy, and then see what you got.
Yeah.
I'd bring Edmundson in to play right side with Jack-Eye and let it roll, or drop Kovacevic to play with Jack-Eye, but Weidman would be my guy sitting if it was up to me.
Yeah, I think it just makes the most sense from many standpoints. And I feel like all these rookies, you go into a season with 4 rookies on defense, and you think, man, this is going to be a mess. And there have been times where it's gotten a little bit hairy, but with Matheson coming back, that you're not going to have to expose Savard as much, right? Matheson's going to take those top end minutes, not going to have to expose Goalie as much. So that helps. And the rookies have just been so solid from so many different angles, right? Like even Xhekaj, who I think is the weakest defensively of the group, it's like his weakness defensively is all little stuff, right? Like attention to details. When he gets back on the back check, have your stick in the right spot, right? You can't always play the body. Sometimes you've got to play the puck. And that stuff, I feel like he's going to learn just by getting more reps. So you don't really want to sit him either.
Yeah, if it's Jack-Eye they're sitting, I hope they're just sending him to Laval and letting him play. I can see the merit of him spending some time in Laval. I don't think it's essential for him to go. I don't think it is for any of them, which is actually shocking. I know the big plan was to be rotating them in and out of Laval to let them learn bits and pieces. But I don't see a rush for any of them to go. But if it's Jack-Eye they're looking at sitting, I hope they just let him go to Laval and let him play top minutes and let him continue to develop. He is the shock of the group for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those saying that what Lori just said, essentially, the idea is that you could send guys down to Laval and let them work on specific skills.
Yeah.
And Trzak mentioned Jordan Harris. I don't think Jordan Harris is going to see any AHL time. Like, I could be wrong. I could definitely be wrong. He could hit a rough patch, but he is another level from last year.
For me, this is going to be controversial, but and it needs a little bit of explanation. But for me, I think Jordan Harris is the readiest.
Yeah.
And I know that's probably, everyone's going to say, oh, Gooley's the better player. Gooley has the higher ceiling. Gooley's going to be a better defenseman than Harris. But for me, Harris is the guy who's readiest to play the role that he will play for the long haul. He's not going to be a top pair defenseman. He's going to be your 4-5 guy. And to me, he's readiest to fill that role right now. I don't think sending him to Laval is going to turn him into a 2-3. He's going to be what he is. And I think he's the guy that's readiest to be there. And he's the one for me that there's least logic in sending him down. And the piece for Gooley that I was wondering about was, would he be better off playing, going to Laval, playing top pair with Barron and the two of them developing together and in all situations, dominating there, but he's playing so much in Montreal and managing and doing well that even that idea doesn't seem like it's necessary at this point. It's
one of those situations that Bergevin would have dreamed of, right? Because he was always talking about how he wanted the kids to force him into making a move, right? The kids are going to force Kent Hughes into making a move on defense because
sure.
I don't foresee a scenario where all of Weidman, Edmundson, Savard, and Matheson are in the lineup unless there are injuries to these kids. Like they're just showing
Yeah.
too well. And I love your point about Harris being most ready for what he's going to be, and maybe Gooley being the one who gets sent down. And it's not about Gooley struggling, right? It's just about
No,
getting
it's
him those top end minutes that he's going to
knowing what his
play in the
ceiling
NHL.
is. And development. I had this conversation
Mm-hmm.
with a buddy a while ago, but I don't know if we all talk about the same thing. We're not developing kids to play in the NHL. We're developing kids to reach their ceiling. And Gooley is 100% ready to be in the NHL. But is he ready? Like, is there something that he can get from Laval? And I don't know if there is or not. Like, I'm not arguing for him to go to Laval, but for me, the question about Laval or NHL for him is there a ceiling that he can reach where Laval is a logical stepping stone for him to get there? Because we know he's probably the defenseman right now with the highest ceiling. And so, is there something in Laval that can be learned? I don't like for me, I think he's a ways away from his ceiling. He's 100% going to survive in the NHL today and without ever seeing Laval. But I still think that his ceiling is much higher than it is right now. And,
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally get what you're putting down there, Lori.
Yeah.
I hope everyone else is getting it too, because I think it's quite nuanced and quite intelligent. I do want to talk about Cole Caufield's second goal, because can we talk about that Nick Suzuki pass? I know he's been looking for it all season, but wow.
Everybody knew that pass was coming. Everybody knew what he was doing. Like, everybody knew that, he would shoot if there was no pass, but everybody knew he was looking for Caufield, and still he managed to find the hole and get it there. And he's just, Caufield. I think Caufield is going to score more goals than Matthews this year. Well, and for me, it comes down to one thing, and I'm not to get into a conversation about the Leafs, but maybe Matthews will get back on track if they fire Keefe quickly. But that'll get a conversation going for sure. But I certainly he's going to be competing with Matthews and a few others for the top of the league. He's phenomenal, and he's finding a way, and Suzuki is finding a way, even when the team is bad. Even when they're not winning in the games, they're not winning. Those two have managed to find a way, and certainly teams will adjust to them and everything else. But these two are going to be really strong. I liked Kirby Dach on that line.
Yes.
I don't know if that's going to stick, but I think that might be the combination that has a lot of potential to work there. So.
Kirby Dach adds that extra layer of like puck protection and ability defensively.
Size.
Yeah, insulates them a little bit.
Yeah,
he's got a bit of playmaking
and smart enough to play
too.
with them.
Yeah,
he's smart enough to play with them, can anticipate with them, and brings a little bit of defensive awareness that they don't necessarily thrive in. But if that trio can work, that could be a top line that the Habs haven't had in a very long time.
Yeah, and it's been a big, story through this season so far that Suzuki Caufield combo have been scoring. Sorry, but their underlying numbers have been in the garbage heap, right? And I don't really worry too much about that for them right now, because I know that what they're being asked to do is very difficult. They're playing top line matchup minutes on a team that nobody else is scoring, so every team knows they have to check them. They're still managing to find ways to score even without the power play functioning until this point. So it's like you have to put in context what those numbers mean. But tonight with Kirby Dach, they were the best line by the underlying numbers. So I would keep them together.
Yeah, I mean, everyone, at the draft when the big trade happened for Kirby Dach, lots of conversation about, but he's not, like, I don't think he's a winger. What if he's a center? What if he's only a winger? You know what? What if he is a winger? What if he's the winger that completes that line? Then are you happy with that deal? Are you missing Romanov right now?
I feel like the emergence of Xhekaj has completely erased all memory of Romanov. Like, I know he had the big hits, but no, I have not heard him any talk about him. And I remember people being a little bit upset at the time that he was traded. Like, obviously they were excited because it's the draft and you want to get a big player or whatever, but There are some people who are a little bit upset about losing Alex Romanov.
Uh,
I have not heard his name this season.
I have the best story for that. When I was at the draft, there was a young fella sitting in front of me. He was probably like 20. And he was wearing a Romanov jersey and a hat that Romanov had signed. And when the trade was announced, his face was he just froze. And it was like, so we were all kind of stunned, and it was all very exciting. But this guy was just like, like, and I reached out and kind of shook him. And I'm like, it's gonna be all right. he was just so shook. And later in the evening, he had taken his jersey off. He was still wearing his hat. He had taken the jersey off. Yeah, poor guy. But yeah, I mean, people were pretty stunned by it, and lots of talk about whether he's a center or not. I'm not sure. Here's a big thought. In Marty's world, does he give a shit who's center?
Probably not.
He's playing 5 forwards on the power play. When was that happening in Montreal last? Like, we're like, everyone talks about the next big shift in hockey, in NHL hockey, will be this positionless play. Doesn't matter if Kirby Dach is playing center, if he's a playmaker who is, can transition the puck, something the Habs have so little of, and finish, and has good defensive awareness, and has hockey smarts. Who cares? Who cares how he lines up when you write their names down for your game sheet? Yeah, that's my big soapbox for Kirby Dach. But and they've got some centers in development now, so might not be a big deal.
Yeah, and who knows what happens this year, right? I know that they're getting the wins right now, but this is still a team that could get 1 or maybe 2 very, very good players at the top end of the draft this year, depending on what happens with Florida. Ekblad's out. Paul Maurice is not a great coach. So there's lots of things that could happen down the stretch here.
They're struggling with injuries, and they freaked out a little bit after the exit in last year's playoffs. Wouldn't it be funny if they won the lottery on a Florida playoff miss?
Oh my gosh. That would make the Sherratt trade the best trade.
Oh my god.
Since the Lafleur trade, like the trade for the pick for Lafleur.
Yeah, I mean, that would be enormous, right? But I mean, that's a bit of a dream. I joke and say that my dream is that the Habs make the playoffs, eliminate the Leafs in the first round, and win the lottery on Florida's miss.
Oh,
but
God.
that but they're gonna have they're like my other prediction is that their 3rd first round pick is coming from an Edmonton trade at the deadline.
Yeah.
And so that's for me, that's the logical other first round pick. But who knows what happens to this draft? But they've got Beck in development. He's looking fantastic in the OHL. Where does Mishar end up playing? Is he going to be a center? Is he going to be a winger? Who knows? So yeah, there's lots of good things happening, and these guys managed to pull off 2 centers in a summer. I'm not that worried about positions right now. Like, skills coming in, we'll let it get sorted.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I kind of keep pushing as well is, even if the Canadiens don't get into like the top 3 or 4 spots in this upcoming draft, remember that the assets that Hughes has accumulated, and remember how much he was moving and shaking at last year's draft. And I don't think that was just an attempt to create headlines because it was in Montreal. I think this management team is incredibly aggressive, and they're not afraid to sacrifice a ton of assets if they think they can move up and grab a guy like Bedard or Fantilli.
Right on. And the draft is deep. I mean, there's the talk is that anything in the top 10, I think they're picking top 10, either because that's where they land, or they package their picks or pick some players and pick in the top 10. I think they're going to lead the draft with a strong player. There's some strong centers in this group. I don't think we need to be too worried about positions right now and just let it play out. But it'd be a pretty dicey time to be a veteran, I think, in Montreal. Like, wondering where your where your spot is for the long term, because this team's getting young fast.
This is true.
Yeah.
There's Rock Smasher in the chat is mentioning Waugh, Mishar, Beck, Harvey Pinard, and Yolonen are all forward prospects who should be knocking on the door soon. I think Waugh's a bit further away. Just talking to scouts, he has some work to do on his game that we'll look at this year, obviously, because he's just destroying the QMJHL.
Yeah.
It's not even hard for him, but he has some work to do with using his teammates a bit more. But I would not be surprised whatsoever if Beck makes the team next year. And I think Yolonen will make this team after the deadline.
Probably true, depending on how many guys they can move. He's ready now, really.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is there anything? There's a couple of guys in the lineup. Are they doing more than Yolonen would be doing if he was there? I don't think so. But there's like 72 forwards right now. That's why he's sitting where he's sitting. But there's some solid talent that's coming up, and the Habs have the luxury to actually let these kids develop right now. Like that's where they are. They can let some kids develop and come ready. So it's a nice thing.
Nice position to be in after the last several years, right? You can see the future happening. I'm trying to zoom in here. I forget the name of the player. Somebody asked if the Canadiens have any goaltenders of the future in the organization. Now, if you were here for when I think it was Aaron Idovich who was here, it might have been Mitch Brown as well. We're talking about the Canadiens. There's a goaltender they drafted, I believe, in 2020. So let me just queue up the 2020 NHL draft on HockeyDB and find the guy. But he is playing in Ohio State in the NCAA. Yes.
Yeah.
Jakob Dobes. And last year he played 35 games, put up a .934 save percentage. And this year in 9 games so far, so clearly the starter, has a .923. I mean, he must have had a rough game because he was at .932 the other day. But obviously not at the like Devin Levi level of goaltender, but a guy that several people now have pointed out as someone to watch over the next little while. And if like Jeff Gordon's track record is something to go by, he finds good goalies. Like the Rangers have consistently pulled really excellent goaltending prospects out of nowhere, even while they had Lundqvist.
Yeah. I don't think there's a rush for them to find a goalie at this point.
No.
I don't think they're too worried about it. I think they're content to let Allen and Montembeault run with it until they're ready, and then like you said, they'll find the guy. Whether they draft someone this year or I'm not as a lot of folks think that they'll focus on a goalie at the draft. Maybe it's possible, I guess, but I can see them probably going with a previously drafted goalie and try to pick him up from another team. Yeah, there's a couple of teams for sure that have goalies. Like, I look at that guy Wolf in Calgary. They have a fair amount of depth in net. Nashville has some depth. I wonder if they could drag Askarov out of there. Doubtful, but I can see them going after someone else's pickings at some point, but we'll see.
And that's something that Hughes hasn't been shy about, right? We just saw another trade with the Chicago Blackhawks picking up Baudin, a former first-round pick, needed a change of scenery. He's betting small amounts, right? But he's putting little bets on a lot of somewhat formerly highly touted players who they think they can work with and develop within the organization, who are in that like 20 to 22 range. Yeah. I love that idea, right? Is like, let's bring these guys in, see if any of them can hit. Already, I feel like Kirby Dach is better than he showed at any point with the Blackhawks, outside of like the first little stretch he had before he got sent down to the World Juniors and injured. So
I know there's been lots of talk in Montreal about Kirby Dach, and I'm not sure what's driving that. I thought he's played well. He hasn't, it's not shown on the score sheet, but I think he's played well, and there's been a fair amount of experimentation with him, right? Like with Monahan, without Monahan, on the wing, at center, and that's where this team is right now. They're going to be shaking shit up and trying to see where people fit best. And will he stay with Suzuki and Caufield probably for a few games, and then he'll probably look at something else, and that's all right. But I think they've already proven the deal to have worked, to be honest. Unless he regresses, I don't think that's happening. So it's that whole approach they're taking of seeing what someone else has got. I like Emil Heineman. I thought he had a great camp.
So did I. Yeah, he was great.
And and that's not even the prize in that trade. But he's a guy that I can see finishing a line nicely. I could see him finishing even the Caufield Suzuki line and bringing that piece that line doesn't have. I don't think he quite has the offensive skill to be there, but I hope we get to see more of him when he's back to health, but we'll see. And players that someone else picked that they've managed to get their eye on and go after. So, and I suspect that's my prediction for what's going to happen with the goalie, that it'll be someone else's prospect that they find a way to nab.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's something that they've been looking at. Gregory in the chat mentions maybe Dustin Wolf from Calgary.
That's the guy.
From what I know of Calgary, they are very high on Dustin Wolf.
They are very high on him. They have depth there, but they're very high on him for sure. And I think it would take a lot to get him out of Calgary, but
you have to give up like another Toffoli and not take a pick or something.
Yeah, and why not? Calgary's going to compete this year. They're going to be all in at the deadline again.
100%.
And I'd give up a pretty nice piece for Dustin Wolf, to be honest. But I don't know if that's where Hughes is at. But that's the sort of thing that I expect them to be doing, is looking at other teams' prospects. We'll see.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I do want to. We'll finish it off with a little bit more on Cole Caufield, because how can we not talk about Cole Caufield? I took a tiny bit of heat on Twitter during the game after he scored his second goal, because I said Cole Caufield is a player that the Montreal Canadiens and their fans have not seen in generations. And I think people confuse how long generations are, but I will tell you, I'm on the older side of millennials, and I have not seen a player like Cole Caufield. I know Gen Z Habs fans haven't, and the last time the Canadiens had a player in I believe the top 10 in scoring, or maybe he wasn't even top 10 in scoring, Mats Naslund was the last 100-point player for the Montreal Canadiens. That was in, I think, 86, which was the year before.
That's the 80s, yeah. That would be the 80s.
And a few people mentioned Stefan Richer. Richer is a good player, but I feel like Richer is very comparable, era-adjusted to Max Pacioretty. Good shooter, but not what Cole Caufield is, which is like a top 10 goal scorer in the entire league, in my opinion. I think you're pushing back to like Steve Shutt, Guy Lafleur territory in terms of pure goal scoring talent.
I think so too. I don't think there's when you say Richer, I see Pacioretty, and both were really strong players. The thing that's different about Caufield for me, and I would say this is different about Caufield and Suzuki, and what I suspect we're going to see in Slafkovsky, and maybe Gouli. That is their confidence level and their interest in taking the team on their back. I think that's why Slafkovsky was the pick, to be honest, because of his confidence and how he will respond to the Montreal environment. But Suzuki Caufield, that duo in particular, we haven't seen that sort of likable cocky in a long time.
Yeah.
That they're like that penalty shot for Suzuki. The ballsy shots that Caufield pulls off, right? And when he scores, it's like, look at me, look what I did.
Mm-hmm.
and it's likable. It's not jackass cocky. It's they know who they are, they know what they can do, and we're going to watch them do it for a decade. That's a really good thing. Caufield is going to be at the top of the league in scoring this year. I really believe that. And and he's going to cost a fortune.
Yeah, that's the first thing that came up in the comments section was offer him a matching contract to Suzuki. It'll be an underpay. I don't know if he would accept it, honestly, right now. If I'm his agent, I say call me at the end of the season, but it would be
Maybe
my
on the
number one
short term,
priority.
he might accept it on short term, but
Yeah.
I don't think you're getting a long-term contract out of him for that.
Yeah,
for that
I don't think
price.
any contract that he signs starts with anything lower than an 8.
No, I don't think so either. And I think that would unless he falls off a cliff dramatically, I think that even 8 would be team friendly on some level.
I totally agree. If they could go
Yeah.
8x8, I feel like Canadiens fans would be very, very
Take
happy.
that and run.
Yeah, that would be an absolute steal, like akin to the Pacioretty 4.5x6 back in the day. So, Pacioretty finished 4th in goals in 13-14. Yeah, I know, Pacioretty was a fantastic goal scorer. There was a stretch where he was, I believe, the 3rd best goal scorer in the league over like a 5-year stretch. He was fantastic. But the difference between Pacioretty and Caufield, from what I'm talking about, and I think what Laurie is talking about as well, is it's not necessarily about the number of goals. It's the way that the goals are scored. Pacioretty was a volume shooter. He had a great shot, don't get me wrong. But Pacioretty would rip like 6 shots in a game, like constantly, and just like pounding till he would get through. And it led to the trashing of him, right? It was like, oh, he doesn't have scoring chances. He shoots from too far out. Well, no, he didn't. He got lots. But Caufield just has this innate ability to find the puck in ways that you shouldn't be able to score from and still score. Like, he can go invisible for a whole game and kind of have a terrible game and then have one chance and he's going to make it.
And he roofs it. Yeah. He can score from the blue line. He can score from below the goal line. He in close, out, he can score from distance. He knows who he is. That's the other piece that I would say that's like he's built for the environment in a way that Pacioretty wasn't. And I always found that sad about Pacioretty, to be honest, because he was the best goal scorer in Montreal for a long time, and I don't know that he was ever appreciated for it as much as he
definitely not.
The whole perimeter player nonsense and whatever. But he had a different persona about him, and Caufield is he's a different makeup. He will try shots that Pacioretty wouldn't have entertained. Just and nail them. That's the other thing is, and if he misses it, he'll take an impossible shot once and miss it and try it again in 5 minutes if the opening is there. Like it's just the confidence level is through the roof, and the personality is built for Montreal.
Yeah, and I don't want anybody to feel like we're shortchanging Pacioretty either, because while he was a fantastic goal scorer, at the same time he was one of the best defensive players in the league. Right?
He was solid. Yeah,
he was a monster possession driver. Never played with a first line center. No disrespect to David Desharnais. Although Danault was a first line center, but by that time Pacioretty was captain, and he never should have been captain. I think that's the biggest thing that happened here that just went wrong, right? And other than that, though, like I feel like Pacioretty was a fantastic Montreal Canadien and should be remembered with positive attributes, right? And too many people forget about him, but I just Caufield is a different breed. He's not a power forward. He's just a pure sniper.
Yep, for sure.
Watching from Japan, says William. Thanks for the content. Geez, thank you for watching from Japan. What time is it in Japan? We've had people from New Zealand were in the last one. We have Darcy, who's always watching from Europe. I forget which country. Forgive me. I think maybe Belgium.
Nice.
But it's crazy how addicted Habs fans are to this team already.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, they're better than the Leafs, but they're not that good. It's a low bar.
No, and we're probably on a bit of a high right now. Like, I think this is going to level off. That's my suspicion.
For sure.
Oddly, I think it's going to level off when some of the vets come back. Because I think they're rolling on pure adrenaline right now, and the excitement of their first days in the NHL and stuff. And I think that some of that's going to balance out, and that's all right. And that'll be learning too. But they're a lot of fun to watch right now, and we'll see what happens with the poor Leafs. But
I'm sure they'll be fine. They're fun to rag on. Yeah, I think they'll be okay. I think they'll like Austin Matthews isn't gonna shoot like 4% for a whole season. Right?
No, he is not.
You know, like I think his average the last 3 years was like 18% or something like that. He's probably the best goal scorer we've seen since Ovechkin. Maybe like his shot is actually better than Ovechkin's is. He just doesn't have the volume that Ovechkin does.
He's fantastic. Like his shooting ability. That's another elite shooter. Yeah, he's cold right now. I heard something about him. I read something about him wanting to be more physical this year, wanting to change his game and be more physical. I'm like, why the heck is Austin Matthews? Why would you want to change your game? Like,
just scored 60 goals, dude. Like, you're not the issue.
You're not the issue. Yeah, I think there's going to be change in Toronto. That's my suspicion, and I don't know how soon, but I'm feeling like there's change coming.
Yeah. Someone mentioned, I saw on Twitter that they have the same record right now as they did after 9 games last year. So,
interesting.
For Leafs fans who are on the edge, no need to jump.
There was a conversation about slow starts for them. I remember having that conversation. Maybe.
Someone says, are they going for Bedard? No, that's Vancouver.
No. Vancouver. God, what a mess out there.
2 straight wins, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, they finally won a couple. Must have been that big trade.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I love that trade for them, though. I am a big Ethan Bear fan. But did we talk about Dvorak at all, or was that before the show?
I don't remember if we talked about him immediately after we started chatting, but I don't know if we did online. But he got a hat trick, like
wild.
We all predicted that.
And talk about like coming back after clearly being at fault for a goal against at the end of that second period, and coming back with authority in the second period.
Yeah.
Not just with 1 goal, but 2 right off the bat, right? Just hanging around the net, doing the right thing. So good to good on Christian Dvorak to come out there and then bagging the empty net goal. Fantastic.
And he smiled.
Yeah.
There's actually footage of him smiling. So.
I mean, everybody seems to be happy right now on this team, which is what you want.
It's a fun time, I think. And I think that the even that like the benefit of that, even for a veteran like Dvorak, and he's still a young player really, but that he, the tone is set, right? You can screw up. It doesn't mean your game's over. It doesn't mean you're sitting in the box next week. It's you screwed up on 1 goal, go back out and do something good. And maybe it's starting to stick to all of them. We'll see.
Absolutely. This is a fun team to watch, no matter what way you spin it. Right?
So much fun.
It's just a total different vibe from last year. And we talked about it. I don't know if it was last show or a couple shows ago, because everything blends together when you have 2 young kids and you're running 7 shows and starting this new job and you're super busy and not sleeping. But between games 40 and 60, the rookies will start to struggle a bit and hit walls. And So there will be tough times in this year. So enjoy the moment. Enjoy the fun parts, but hopefully this team remains as fun to watch as we saw tonight. I mean, obviously, it's high every time, but just the level of fun that we've seen so far this season, I think will pull us through this 82-game grind of a schedule. But thank you, Lori, for coming on. Before we close things out, tell everybody where they can find your work.
Well, I write for an East Coast newspaper, Rec House Press, so you can find me there, rechauspress.com, and also have my own Habs blog, habather.ca, and you can find me on Twitter, Lori10Habs.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Lori, and thank everyone we got mentions of Taiwan in here, Japan, Europe, Asia, everywhere. Hopefully we can get some people from all continents throughout the season joining our Habs fan post-game show here. But thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next game. Mark Dumont is going to be on with me to cover the game against the Wild, see if there's a revenge game there after getting pretty badly outplayed. But we'll see you then. Make sure you smash the like and subscribe buttons as I spit all over my keyboard. See you next time.